Welcome. This is Susan Young, Mindful Coaching. We've just taken a breath to bring us a little bit more steady and in the room. And I asked you to think about what's your intention for being here? What's your intention for being here? What do you want out of our time together? So I'm just going to go around and ask you at a high level to say your name. And I'm just going to go as you're appearing on my screen. So Kim, why are you here? What do you want? What's your intention?
To help me refocus on my mindfulness. It's been a bit amiss lately.
Okay, thank you. Norma, how about you? Do you have an intention? What's your intention for being here? Oh, wait, you have to unmute.
Yeah, I was going to say almost the same thing, except that I was going to use the word scattered.
Ah.
I also recognize it's full moon, so.
Thank you. Danielle, are you willing to say what you what your intention is while you're here?
Yeah, kind of reset things to get less stress at work.
Yeah. Thanks. Jim.
Yeah, we can segue off of that one, I guess. So less stress on work, logic, left brain stuff, and get into centering and grounding and body space.
Okay, thanks. Julie?
I was looking at the three main components of what you wanted to achieve, and I like the practice deeper self-compassion. So finding myself, grounding myself, and yes, deeper self-compassion.
Thanks. Brenda? Oh, do I have to ask you to unmute? There we go.
Hi. Yes, I haven't been to any of your sessions before, and Linda Grant is a friend of mine, and we were talking about mindfulness and just maybe meditations and those sorts of things. So she highly recommended your sessions. So that's why I'm here.
Just trying it out based on Linda, who also hasn't been to any of my sessions, but I love that you trust me enough to leap in. Linda, how about you? What's your reason for being here? Oh, I asked, you have to unmute first. Wait.
Sorry, I thought I had.
Yeah.
Yes, I trust you wholeheartedly, Susan, and I was really actually excited to try one of your sessions. Same thing, just getting grounded, slowing down, more self-compassion.
Yeah. Self-compassion's a big one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do a little bit of kind of the teaching thing, and then we're going to go into a practice with each of the layers. So feel free to kind of, we're a small enough group that if something kind of just unmute and kind of speak up if you want anything more about things. So I'm going to try the share thing. Let's see. Can you see Reset Your Mindfulness Practice up on the screen? Yeah, great. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today, some of you already know what is mindfulness, and I'm just going to reiterate it for us. And we're going to talk about the 3 steps, what I called simple steps. So using the breath to connect mind and body. And I've got some kind of background information on breath that I think helps us to remember why it's so important to use the breath. Step 2 is enhancing our body awareness in the present moment. And step 3 is practicing deeper self-compassion. And then we'll leave some time at the end to chat. So we know that life is really relentless in how fast it is. And often we're whirling around and things get intense. And, you know, there's a lot of things going on in the world too with our global connections, right? We're aware of wars and tragedies. And those of you from Kingston, I don't know if everyone here is from Kingston, but, you know, Kingston just went last Thursday through that terrible murder. So we know there's tragedies and trauma and difficult things happening all the time. And then there's our personal lives, how we're managing and what's going on. So how do we continually remember to be in mindfulness, but not in that sense of, we were talking today in Mindfulness Monday, not getting stuck in that kind of toxic positivity, right? Where we're relentlessly cheerful no matter what, because that's not helpful either. So we need all three steps in order to achieve a kind of balanced sense of how do we stay in mindfulness. Now, some of you already know Jon Kabat-Zinn is considered one of the godfathers of mindfulness, and he brought it from the East in the late 1970s. And he was really the first. He's written 11 or 12 books, and he created the mindfulness-based stress reduction program, which is an 8-week-long program that I've taught about maybe 15 courses of those. And I've worked with maybe over 100 clients on mindfulness and how to bring that more steadily into your life. Mostly, of course, I'm working with myself, because previously I was a whirling dervish of insanity. I was managing a sexual assault team. I was on call 24/7. I was racing around, juggling all kinds of things. And I didn't know how to stay in mindfulness. So when you think about paying attention to this moment right here, so turn off your devices if they're on, settle in, and bring your attention here for this time together just as best you can, because being here is what we can do. So what do you see? You can just put it in the chat if you want. What's the outcome of this speed that we're living at? What's the wear and tear on you, on your family or partner, on your friends? What do you see is the part of this experience of the relentless, constant, rapid speed that we're working at? What's the cost to us? You can just also unmute yourself if you want to say something. What's your experience of that? What's the cost to us? Almost everyone said, help me de-stress, help me relax, help me reground, less stress. So what do we experience when we don't reground and come into mindfulness?
Physical unwellness.
Yeah, physical unwellness. Feeling exhausted with no gain. Yeah. Emotional and mental drain. Exactly. So we know there's cost to us. Difficult to focus and be creative. That's true. Because we feel like we've got ADHD, like we're all, whether we have ADHD or not, that's a genuine diagnosis. But even if we don't, sometimes we feel like we're just kind of scattered all the time. I think someone said that in the opening, scattered, difficult to focus. So when we think about those things and how the outcome of mindfulness can help us become more resilient and stable, and they've done a lot of research and studies, and it shows there's at least these 7. There might be more that you might want to say or put in the chat, but studies show us that when we practice mindfulness regularly over time, it allows us to create calmness, particularly in our internal space, so that we're not always thinking, stuck in thinking. So I'm going to talk to you more about breath or breathing right now. I just read James Nestor's book called Breathing. Any of you who haven't read it, it's really good. And one of the things he talks about is how to breathe. And we're going to do that in a minute. But first, when we tune into our breath, we can cultivate intention, concentration, and relaxation. And it allows us to come into this present moment and relax. It calms the central nervous system, and it supports us to be in the world. Just as I asked you to do at the beginning, just think about that. We had a moment where I suggested you come into this moment and breathe a little bit more. So you're devoting an hour of your time here. And as we get more practice, we can begin to devote minutes each day to give our waking hours a steadier, calmer time. Now, deep breathing slows everything down. Just keep practicing it now as I'm speaking to you. Pay more attention to your breathing. Brings you more here. It engages the parasympathetic. I'll talk to you more about that in a moment. It reduces feelings of anxiety. You can't be as anxious when you're breathing slowly. You just can't do it. You can't be both anxious and breathing slowly. It lowers your heart rate and blood pressure, and it actually relaxes muscles in the gastrointestinal tract. Hello, MJ, welcome. We're already well in, so just kind of join us and take a breath or two. And so we've talked about feeling stressed, feeling like there's a lot of things that we're kind of driven by. Research is showing us that when we're breathing more deeply, regularly, these are some of the outcomes. So we know that space and time today for most of us is compressed because we can extend communication to all corners of the earth in real time. One of the women, I don't know whether it was MJ, was coming from Australia because they're 12 hours ahead of us, I think. Was that you, MJ, who was coming from Australia? Someone texted me or emailed me to say they were coming from Australia. So we used to have work from 8 to 4, 9 to 5, or if we did shift work. But now most workplaces can expect 24/7 responses. Some workplaces are building in no more kind of reactions, but we bank from our homes. Kids, if we've got kids, they watch movies in the cars while we travel. We text all the time, including during meetings. And at the beginning, I asked you to put aside your device so that you're bringing a focused attention here. Because I'm asking you to do simultaneous things to keep deep breathing while you're listening and digesting the information that I'm sharing. Because we want to do both. We want to be able to breathe deeply, stay mindful and attuned to our internal experience while staying connected to the outside world. When we practice breathing as one part of mindfulness, it allows us to experience these things that the slide talks about. So I'm going to suggest, even though you might roll your eyes and say, this is silly, I know how to breathe. But James Nestor goes into quite a bit of detail about this in his book called Breath. And he says our nostrils are designed for breathing. It engages the whole respiratory system. When we breathe in through the nostrils, it filters the air, it heats, conditions, and by the time it reaches the lungs, we can actually access 20% more oxygen. Now, just for a moment, practice shallow breathing. Do it through your mouth, almost like a panting. That's sometimes how we breathe if we're in a flight, or if we're in a trauma thing, like a dog, right? All mammals except dogs breathe through their nose because the whole respiratory system is designed for that. It balances carbon dioxide and oxygen. When you're breathing deeply, it's much harder to be anxious because it slows everything down. The other thing is your posture. Many of us kind of slump forward. So that's the other thing, is to remember that when we have a long spine, you can sit back in your chair and relax, but to keep the spine long allows the lungs. Most of us only use about 1/3 of our capacity of our lungs. And as we learn to inhale more deeply and exhale more deeply, can actually see a difference in the lobes of the lungs. So calm, controlled, deep breathing, we're going to do that in just a minute, sends signals to the brain that you're in a calm state. So we're rewiring neural networks, we're calming the central nervous system, and we're sending messages to our body. 80% of the messages to ourselves comes from the body. So the message is, I'm in a relaxed state when I'm breathing slowly. It's easy to do. And the other thing is, breathing is free. Breathing is free. So now we're getting ready to do a breathing practice together. So just put your hands in your lap. Maybe roll your shoulders up and back. Tuck your chin a little bit so your spine is long, and have a sense of lifting out of your pelvic bowl. Close your eyes if that's comfortable. And if it's not, just drop your eyes softly down to the ground. Let your jaws soften, let your shoulders come down, let your belly be soft. through the nostrils. Begin to breathe in. And as you breathe in, have a sense of expanding your belly, your diaphragm. Feel your ribs on all four sides, front, sides, and back, and your lungs expanding. When you exhale, do the same thing in your mind's eye. Feel the lungs contract, the ribs contract, the diaphragm, the belly against the spine, and then feel the air come out through the nostrils. Let's do that together again, keeping your lips closed, your body relaxed. You don't have to do it perfectly. We're just expanding our capacity to breathe deeply. When your mind starts to wander, just bring it back with intention to the nostrils. And now take one or two more breaths, deep, full breaths. And then when you're ready, open your eyes. Kind of wiggle your feet so you feel your feet on the ground. I took a mindfulness and trauma course with Dr. David Treleaven, and one of the things he talked about was sometimes if we have trauma in our background, we can dissociate when we're breathing or doing meditation. So it's important to kind of do what you need to do to be back here if you were drifting off in your mind. Step 2, being in the present moment with body and mind. So I promised a little bit earlier that I would talk about the nervous system a little bit more. So the autonomic nervous system, we're going to talk about 2 parts to it, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And even though it's not intuitive, the sympathetic is actually the accelerator. Like if you need to do something suddenly, something happens, you see a kid step into a street or, you know, a deer runs in front of you, your body comes into action. This can be stressful and traumatic, and it can create that fight, flight feeling inside. It can tip you into hyper arousal. Or parasympathetic is a kind of rest and digest. It puts on the brakes when things are going too quickly, and it helps the body and mind rest and restore. But if we have a kind of a stress trauma history or reaction, sometimes we can feel a freezing inside, and it can tip us into hypoarousal, a sense of depression or flatness, no affect. So we want to kind of, many people say when we practice longer meditations that, oh, my mind was racing and I was thinking. Or some people say, well, I kind of nodded off. I got a little bored. Those are examples of hyper, thinking, or hypo, oh, I'm bored. It's too slow. So those are ways that we react. Now I'm going to share a little bit more about the stress reactivity. Those of you that have taken my mindfulness programs are familiar with this. So imagine, I'll use the example of the deer leaping out in front of your car. And you notice I'm keeping my voice calm and not engaging in that higher level. So when something stressful happens to us, say it's an external stressful event, that's acute, like a deer jumping out in front of our car, say it's dusk. Automatically, we will go into activation, where we will go into that hyper arousal, most of us. We will react, and we will maybe leap out of the car if we can, you know, flag down another car, call 911. Depends if we've hit the deer or not. If that intensity, if we add to that intensity by putting the gas pedal down, we can make that even more intense. We go into reactivity to what's occurring. If this goes on for some time, if it's a chronic, if it becomes a chronic stress, then we also can have maladaptive or difficult coping strategies, more caffeine. We can abuse substances, alcohol, you know, whatever, Red Bull, sugar. There's lots of ways that one can get into reactivity and not stay resilient and stable and mindful. So another way is that we can move from reactivity to response with an intentional attention by being in the moment more. The first step is we become aware that we're activated. We'll stick with the example for now of the deer. You're driving along, a deer jumps in front, hits the car. Of course, you're going to be activated. Who wouldn't be? But as soon as we can, we return to deep breathing. We calm ourselves down. We, you know, is the deer taken off into the woods? Does something need to happen? Has your car been damaged? We start to respond to what's occurring, but we do it from a place of being instead of a place of doing, of running around. And the intensity, instead of increasing, it decreases. And we use more skillful coping strategies to respond. This is the same with an internal chronic long-term thing. We just begin to change how we're responding. And if you think, you remember when I talked about the hyperarousal, which is, you know, that was where I tended to live years ago, was that, you know, too much, constant, anxious, like those kinds of things, being on call at the hospital for 10 years, 24/7. It's like, who would do that? All my colleagues at the province and all the regions were doing it, but still, it was insanity, right? Hypoarousal, folks I work with often say they kind of slow, you know, they might doze off if we sit for 20 minutes in silence, or they might, oh, did Kim get kicked off? Sorry. Did you get kicked off there, Kim? I think I got you back in. So this optimal arousal scale is about sitting in the middle, about, you know, not going too much into hyper, not going too much into hypo. And if you end up noticing in our next practice, you might have a tendency to go more hypo. I've heard people, I did a meditation, a yogic meditation practice at my yoga studio this morning. And someone at the end, she does a kind of long meditation of Shavasana, those of you who are familiar. And I heard someone snoring next to me. And I thought, just those little, you know, like that. And I thought, oh yeah, so that's not me. I rarely am in hypoarousal. It's not something I do. So what's important for us to do is observe our patterns of where we land. So by tuning back into this present moment more and more, it allows us to accept that stress impacts us, be aware when we become activated, and hopefully over time we become less and less activated. And then with our intentional attention, we shift away from that and into the present moment connection with our body and mind. So I think the next one is another practice. So any questions or comments that people have before we do another practice? This is more like a body scan practice to get us more anchored. Anyone have any comments, thoughts, questions? Norma?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if there's two things. If I doze off, I do that a lot. Just your voice, like breathe in, breathe out, end of story. I mean, that's my sleeping pill, right? Anyway, so yeah. Which goes very quickly most of the time. And the other thing was, if I disappear, my tablet isn't a happy camper, and it just goes away. So yeah, everything you said like really hits home. And as soon as you think about it, like, why don't we think about this? Well, we have to think about it 100 times a day, you know, and even when you practice it for years and years, it may go down to 50, but it's still like many times a day. that we're just out of the habit of breathing properly, really. And I think our ancestors, they had all these rituals, you know, and we don't have enough rituals anymore because they're always, you know, big reminders about things, right? So these are our new rituals.
That's right. It's true. Thanks, Norma. And I think my students will be very familiar with this because I use it a lot. But the Jon Kabat-Zinn, the way he brings it forward, Norma, and for others, is he actually uses this where he says, I'm thinking, thinking, thinking. Well, this is your hand, and you're away from yourself, and you're thinking, oh, I'm worrying about that. And did I, finish that thing? And I don't think I sent that email, and I better jot that down. And it's kind of like, I'm thinking, thinking, thinking. And then we come back and we remember that we're thinking or feeling, and we come back to the moment and take a deep breath. And this is a practice that we just do over and over. When we sit and practice daily, it gives us more capacity to remember to do it more often. That's kind of what you were saying too, Norma, right? Like throughout the day, where we keep remembering to come back with an intentional attention to this moment just as it is. And there's no doubt it's hard, and our culture is anti-slow. No wonder mindfulness has taken off so much, but that's what Kabat-Zinn says. One of my students says, almost every time, this is in Mindful Mondays where we meet every week at noon. I'm going to do my upsell at the end on that. We meet every Monday at noon from 12 till 1. And one of the students there talks about how when she's sitting in longer meditations, we usually do 15 to 20 minutes, her mind just goes, she's in hyper arousal, right? So she's really learning how to pay attention. And right there, that this is the practice. So we're going to do a slightly longer practice before we do our self-compassion component, which is our last third of the 3 steps. And so this is an opportunity to keep coming back. Your mind will wander. That's what minds do. Blah, 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 thinking about this, thinking about that, feeling this, feeling that, body. So, oh, my elbow's sore, my knee's sore. So that's what happens. We attend to so then what we do is we bring ourselves back. So I'll give a couple of longer spaces of silence. If you're brand new and never meditated before, you might want to use your nostrils as a point of attention. It brings you, every time you notice your mind is thinking, 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 if you bring your attention back to the nostrils, and that allows you to return back to the breath. So the intention is to observe, and we're going to do a very brief body scan now to bring ourselves into this. Okay. So closing your eyes, letting your hands rest in your lap or on your thighs. Have a sense of dropping more deeply into your body. Allowing the breathing to deepen. And know that at any time, if you need to open your eyes or get up or have a drink of water, just do that and come back and join us when you can. Now allow an awareness of your whole body, your whole body. Tune into the toes of your feet, your big toe, your little toes. Have an awareness of your toes, and then the bottom of your feet and the top of your feet. And on your next exhale, move your awareness up to the ankles, the shins and calves, and up through the knees to the thighs. Imagining each muscle, each bone, completely releasing, relaxing, letting go. As you move up in this brief high-level body scan up to the next level. Keeping your eyes closed and your hands resting. Feel your buttocks and your pelvis. And allow a sense of deep engagement from your whole lower body. Soft, relaxed. And on your next exhale, release your awareness of that part of your body. And now, in your mind's eye, bring yourself to the base of your spine. Radiate across the lower back. You might have tenderness in your lower back here. Just notice that if you do. Bring your awareness to the mid back and the upper back, shoulders, the whole spine. And then move your awareness to the belly. Let the belly be soft. Move up to the chest area and feel the expansion of your front and side and back body. Now being inside your body, tuning into the lungs, the heart beating.
I'm gonna help Dad roll up that carpet in the back. In case it rains.
And now allow your awareness to come up to the shoulders, all down through the upper arms and lower arms and hands and fingers. And as you sit here, breathing in and breathing out, move your awareness on the next exhale up through the throat and the neck. Pause for a moment. Let the jaws be soft. Let all tension fall away. Let your tongue be heavy. Let your teeth and gums be soft and at ease. Imagine the whole face being completely soft. Your eyeballs resting deeply in their sockets. Your forehead, your scalp, your hair. And now imagine your brain resting in the skull, coming to a sense of silence and peace. Now feel your whole body from the tips of your toes all the way up to the top of your head. Breathing in, the whole body completely relaxed. Each time you breathe in, the waves of relaxation. Each time you breathe out, letting go of stress. The whole body. Right here. Nowhere to go. Nothing to do. We're now taking 3 more breaths. And opening your eyes as you're ready. taking your time. And remembering what I said from our first meditation, that if you've had trauma or if you're stressed in your life, making sure you wiggle your feet and your toes, you feel yourself back in your body. Welcome to Jen. So that was a present moment body practice that we did. That's part 2. Just notice how you're feeling right now. Feel free to add in the chat anything you'd like to say, your experience, or you might not want to say anything. Next, we're going to talk about self-compassion. This is the last segment, the last of the 3 steps. Several of you mentioned that about the criticism, and you may be familiar with Dr. Kristin Neff, who has devoted her life to researching and exploring self-compassion. And I've taken a course with her and with others, and I'm really moved by her depth of understanding. So she talks about mindful self-compassion as having 3 elements. Kindness towards yourself, just as you would another, a small child, someone you care about dearly. When you suffer or feel inadequate, when you make an error, when you feel pain, when we respond to ourselves with self-criticism rather than self-compassion, it just makes it worse. So to continue to shift our attention, just like we shifted our attention there to relaxing the body, just as I'm inviting you to hold deep breathing right in this moment, I'm also inviting you to bring self-compassion and no longer criticize yourself. And we know number 2 of the 3 elements is that we are not alone. All people make mistakes. And we're part of the human race. So we will also make mistakes. We will stumble and fall to our knees. And that sense of me, that I'm the only one suffering is a false way of doing that, because we're not alone in that. So when we do suffer, if we remember that we are not alone, that allows us to feel more connected with others. And then the third one that Kristin Neff talks about is being mindful, is using this moment. And if we over-identify with an issue, the thing that's making us suffer, so some of you know I'm moving next week, and I'm practicing going slow. I'm practicing a mindful move. And today I got a little bit flustered. There's renovations happening at the house I'm moving to. This house is 3/4 packed that I'm living in. And I was preparing for today. And then the person who's finishing my bathroom needed me over there for something that he needed me. So then I had to stop and get a refund of something I'd bought incorrectly. And when I was standing getting the refund at Home Depot, I was going through all these receipts, right? Because I'm saving all the receipts and the workers are giving me receipts. And I looked like a kerfuffled person. I was pulling out like receipt after receipt so I could get my $51 back for the wrong things I bought. And I remembered in the moment, I felt so grateful to just return back. When I over-identify with the issue of moving, oh, I'm gonna tear my hair off. Moving's really hard, it's challenging. Those things are all true, but if I over-identify with that, then I make it worse. Instead, in that moment, the young woman's looking at me at the Home Depot return desk, and I say, oh, I'm just gonna pause for a moment and take a breath. I can't find the receipt. Are there other options? She said, go find the same thing and bring it back to me and I can give you your receipt. So that's what I did. I walked down the aisle. I got the same thing with the right code on it and came back and she gave me my receipt. So when I was in my slightly kerfuffled state, it wasn't working. When we over-identify with an issue, we get stuck. But if we allow ourselves to come back, which sometimes we can remember, sometimes we don't remember, but when we can. Kristin Neff also talks about 2 approaches to self-compassion, which I'm bringing in because it's important that we remember that sometimes we think of self-compassion as just like, let's be with and kind and comfort and soothe. And that is true. That's a lot of self-compassion. But we also need fierce self-compassion sometimes. It doesn't mean staying in an abusive relationship. It doesn't mean letting other people treat you poorly. It doesn't mean you continue to do bad behavior after bad behavior, but we can do that with both tender and fierce compassion. Kristen Neff wrote a book on fierce self-compassion last fall, a year ago, and she says it's really for women because so many of us don't do that. A note saying, tried focusing in words and what they looked like, i.e. spelling to force tough thoughts out. Quiet moments can be tougher. It's true that quiet moments can be tougher, MJ. You're absolutely right. When we're sitting in quiet, sometimes that can be really tough. So I thought that's kind of the end of the formal presentation. And I'm happy anyone who wants a copy of it, please send me an email, info@susancoach.ca, and I'd be happy to send you a copy of it. And my next thing is to do a practice on mindful self-compassion. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts before we move into our third and final practice? Anything anyone would like to add? Okay. So once again, bring yourself into a comfortable seated position. You can sit on the floor, you can sit on your chair, you can sit on a meditation cushion, whatever fits for you. Close your eyes if that's comfortable. If it's not, drop them down softly to the ground and sustain an unfocused gaze. Let your hands rest comfortably. And then tune in and allow a deeper sense of breathing to begin. If at any point during this meditation you notice the mind wandering, thinking, you may want to use your attention at the nostrils. That's a way to focus or anchor the mind when it's wandering and busy. So first we're adding deeper breathing, layering that in. And then we're revisiting the deep relaxation of the body, allowing your feet and legs, your buttocks, spine and belly and chest, arms, shoulders, throat, jaws, face, to become more deeply relaxed. Have a sense of surrendering, holding. And as you're breathing and relaxing the body, take a moment or so here to let all stress go as best you can. Now I'm going to invite you to bring to your mind someone you care about very deeply, someone that's not very complicated for you, not someone you have a love-hate, but someone you care about with deep affection and warmth. It can be a pet, if you like, a cat or a dog. So bring before in your mind's eye, as though they're sitting across from you, someone, a sentient being you care about very deeply. And just imagine them in front of you. And now from your heart, begin to expand a sense of radiant compassion towards this being across from you. Maybe you know that they've suffered in their lives sometimes. Maybe they're suffering right now. You can hold them or radiate towards them a deep sense of compassion. And maybe you have a phrase that you want to say to them. May you be well. Or maybe something more like, may you thrive and be happy. So choose a phrase, something like that, that fits for you, and radiate that to the person and say that in your mind. May you be happy. And now I want you to let that person or sentient being dissolve in your mind's eye. Think of someone who cares deeply for you. Maybe it's the same person or being, or maybe there's someone else, a guide, a mentor, a teacher, a parent, an aunt, or it could be a friend or a pet. Someone you care about, who cares about you deeply in the same way you cared about that other person or being. And now consciously open your heart, open your body as you imagine this being sitting across from you, and they radiate to you, may you be happy. Imagine like a radiant light pouring over you, filling your whole body. May you be happy. And now letting that person too dissolve in your mind's eye. And I'm going to invite you, if it feels right for you, to bring a hand to your heart and a hand to your belly and press gently with some kind of warmth so you feel the warmth, slight pressure. And then radiate towards yourself a deep sense of compassion and kindness for the ways, for just showing up for yourself tonight, for the sorrows you've endured in your life, for the happiness and joy you've had in your life. Deep sense of compassion for yourself. Let it radiate throughout your whole body, each cell of your body feeling that sense of kindness, compassion toward yourself. And maybe if it fits for you to say the phrase, may I be happy. May I be happy. In the deep, full sense of the word, taking in sorrows and joys, taking in tragedies and beauty. Happy. May I be happy. And then releasing the hands and letting the hands settle back, but feel that slight echo of the warmth if you put your hands there. Now, if you wish, I invite you to make a commitment to yourself to repeat a phrase that fits for you in the upcoming week. It may be something as simple as, may I be happy. But if that doesn't resonate with you, find another phrase that's quite simple. May I be well. May I thrive. May I, whatever fits for you, whatever resonates, so that you can feel the truth of it for you. And now say that to yourself 3 times so it hums in your being. Something that reminds you of compassion and kindness. And now take 3 more breaths, saying your phrase over and over. Deep, full breathing. Relaxed body. And then when you feel ready, taking your time, opening your eyes. Once again, remembering to be in your feet, to feel your body, maybe wiggle your feet around, roll your shoulders, feel yourself here. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience in the last couple of minutes. And I'm going to put a link in the chat so that you can, the main thing I was going to talk about here was—
I can't find the chat, excuse me. Where? Oh, here on the more, where it says more.
Yeah, you could.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
So I was going to just put in the chat link to my website where you can join free. You have one Mindful Monday free. And then if you wish to join, we meet every Monday at 12 noon. And that people pay $97 plus HST for the month. And they get one live weekly session. They get a recording like here. I curate the teachings within mindfulness so that we have a focus each week. Right now, we're working on the 8 habits of cultivating joy in difficult times. And we're on habit number 5, nurturing relationships. I mentioned that at the beginning. So I think I've done my upsell. My business coach who helped me set this up just kept saying, do the upsell. So I think that's it. And I'm doing the 5-day challenge at October 21st to 25th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th from 8 to 8:30 a.m. That's free too. I'm doing that for my Mindful Mondays folks, but I'm inviting other people to come. So every day from 8 to 8:30, we would do something similar to this. We would just do a brief teaching and then sit in silence together for about 15 to 17 minutes. And I'll record the guided meditation and then make it available to people if they wish. So I'd love to hear your experience and your phrase if you want to say it out loud. So I just invite you to unmute. And I'll just go around. I'll go backwards from Jen. I know you came in late and you weren't part of the whole kind of 3 steps. If you would like to unmute and just share a bit about your experience with the last, I think 2, you came in about halfway through. You're welcome to do that.
I was here from the beginning.
Pardon?
I did not come in late. Sorry.
Sorry, Jim, what were you saying?
You said I came in late?
No, I was talking to Jen. Sorry, you heard
Oh,
Jim.
I'm sorry.
Okay, Jen,
I was getting mixed up there.
it sounds similar. Why don't you go ahead and leap in since Jen didn't? You go ahead and leap in. How was the experience?
Sorry, I heard, when you said Jen, I heard Jim. That's okay. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, no, for me, I think it's a bit of a settling in process. I've been away from this for some time. I know the value of it sort of intellectually, I guess. And so it's helped me remember, I guess, to pay more attention to this. So to me, it's a process. It'll probably something I need to pay more attention to over the next days and weeks and balance out my brain a little bit. So it's kind of where I'm at.
Thanks, Jim. Had a note from Jen saying it was relaxing and calming, and Norma's walking around because that fits for her right now. No problem, Norma. Kim, how about you? Would you like to just describe how you're feeling right now?
Sure. Feeling very calm and with a sense of peace.
And did you come up with a phrase that you're going to take away with you?
Yes, just may I be happy.
Thank you. Julie?
So it feels like going back on a bicycle. So I feel a bit rusty, but there's a familiarity there, and getting back into the practice was not that difficult. But there are things I had forgotten, like forgotten about self-compassion and forgotten about, without judgment. So it's nice to be reminded, and may I be happy? Yes, but the one that came to mind is may I be courageous.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we're at 8 o'clock. If you need to leave, please feel free to go. And if not, we'll spend the last few minutes just checking out. Brenda, would you like to say a little bit about how you're feeling?
Yes, relaxing, calming. I was feeling like I was almost asleep. So this is all fairly new to me, and I really enjoyed it. And thank you.
And I just want to say, Susan, you should do a tape about going to sleep. You know, Matthew McConaughey was made millions of dollars, right? And you had me almost out. I mean, it doesn't take me long anyway, but it was like, okay, then,
You have the voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Fairy tales from Matthew McConaughey. I'm just going to stay. Yeah. But it happens to me. Somebody says, okay, take a breath and calm down. It's quick most of the time.
When we remember, that's right.
When we remember. I think that's my word, is just like, okay, remember.
Yeah.
Just that's.
I put notes around the house for myself.
Notes around the house are good.
You.
Especially
MJ,
in the fridge.
MJ, would you like
Breathe while you're looking?
MJ, would you like to add anything? Either unmute yourself or put anything in chat? Then we'll come to Linda. You can lead us out, Linda.
I was gonna say they're asleep, but they're gone. It was definitely a great reminder for myself. This isn't I'm aware of a lot of this stuff, but again, remembering, it was a great grounding practice for me. And I was almost out too. I was very relaxed and calm, and yeah, I loved it. It was like, and I needed it. And I needed this reminder to get grounded and stay grounded.
Yeah.
Because it's just, I've been just going,
That's it,
So-
Julie.
So thank you.
My pleasure. So may each of us here experience how to be happy and courageous and to be in our world and to hold all of those who are suffering in this moment, who struggle in our minds. And in our practice, we wish for all beings to have freedom from suffering in our journey. So thank you for joining me today. Feel free to email me if you want a copy of the PowerPoint. And also, if you want to join Mindful Mondays, you can have one free session, and then you can decide if you'd like to join. And then same thing with October 21st to 25th, every morning from 8 to 8:30, there'll be a meditation. So those are some of your offerings. And you can also set up, if you want coaching, private one-to-one coaching, feel free to reach out to me for a 30-minute free session to find out if I'm the right coach for you. So be well. Thank you for joining me. Take good care.
Thank you so much.
Good night. Thanks. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Nice meeting you all. Bye.